The markets just hit record highs. The S&P, the Nasdaq, all rallying towards the upside. The Nasdaq is up a record 13 days in a row for the first time in history. Welcome back, everyone, to the first edition of the weekly recap, along with the weekly outlook, where we go over everything that happened last week in the markets and we take a look at some of the charts moving into next week. We're going to go on to the broad indices, to the tech names, to some of the things that I'm looking for coming into this week. We're going to take a look at some of the major news events this week with earnings, along with some of my favorite setups that I'm looking for. And with that being said, if you guys are new here, make sure to drop a like and sub. And with that being said, let's get right into the video. So as you can see, we're on the weekly time frame in the SPY along with other major indices. Very nice V-shaped recovery all the way back up and towards our all-time highs. SPY closing above 700 for the first time in history as well. Qs, similar thing, back at all-time highs. SMH rallying towards the upside, leading the markets. I feel like a lot of people were caught offside on this move based off all the major news catalysts that we had in the markets. Once we had that peace deal 2 weeks ago and we had that gap up, that was our sign that the markets did want to gravitate higher, especially once the news catalyst didn't want to drop the market. Whenever we have bad news that doesn't push the markets lower, that's a good sign the markets are going to reverse. So before we head on to the charts here, let's go on to exactly some of the major news events that we have coming into this week. Starting off with the economic calendar, the main thing this week is, of course, going to be earnings. Earnings season did kick off last week with a bunch of the big banks reporting. And of course, we had Netflix on Thursday that dropped the markets lower, but the markets continued to rally. We do have Tesla this week on Wednesday. And of course, we have a bunch of the Mag 7 reporting the week after. But for the red folder news events, we don't have anything on Monday. Tuesday, 8:30, we have core retail sales month over month. Then we also have the retail sales month over month as well. And then at 10 a.m., we do have Fed chair speaking. That is going to be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday. As for the rest of the week, unemployment, that's going to be at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Flash services, along with Friday revised consumer sentiment, which is something to keep an eye out for. So the main thing, as I mentioned, is going to be the core retail sales along with the Fed chair. Now let's go on to the earnings calendar for this week. For the earnings calendar, what we have starting off on Monday, not too much that we're looking for. We still have some banks reporting. The main thing that I did talk about is going to be Tesla. That is Wednesday after close. For some other names to keep an eye out for, if you're interested, some other retail brokers, right? IBKR, something to keep an eye out for. We do have some news on the PDT restrictions that is going to be removed. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But for some other names to keep an eye out for, Intel here on Thursday after close. Intel, very nice rally towards the upside. One of my main watches really coming into this year. Really solid move, one of the best names towards the upside with that semiconductor theme that's been hot the past 2 years with AI and everything else. But with that being said, that is most of the notable earnings to keep an eye out for. Of course, we have smaller ones, as I talked about earlier, but the next big ones are going to be the Mag 7 names, which is going to occur the week after. So the week on the 27th. So with that being said, let's hop straight back into the charts to see exactly what we're looking for coming into next week. So kicking it off here with the SPY weekly time frame. So you can see the SPY is doing a very similar pattern to what I did back in 2025. Consolidation, drop with, of course, the tariff news, rally towards the upside. Very similar thing that's occurring here. Consolidation, push towards the downside. In this case, it's with the war news. And now you can see rally back towards the upside. So very similar thing that's affecting the markets here, right? We had some bearish news catalysts, right? We had the war news that was dropping the markets. And once the war is now essentially called off, it's not officially called off, but you can see the markets are now rallying higher. Similar thing with the tariffs, right? Found a bottom earlier in April, and I can see we're rallying back towards the upside. So moving forward here, what can we expect on the SPY in the Qs? Let's zoom into the charts here. So as you can see, we're officially above our all-time highs key area, which is our 700 key psych. So as you can see, we have a very strong candle close on the weekly time frame. Right, the past 3 weeks, we had a very nice rally, another strong candle close here on SPY. Based off of the weekly time frame, we can expect this next week's candle to continue higher, right? There's a few different scenarios that we're going to be looking for, right? The continuation above our last week's highs for a push towards the upside, or if price does want to potentially come back down in towards our previous all-time highs, which is this level of resistance, we can be looking for continuation higher here as well. Regardless of the scenario, we're going to be looking for pullback longs or longs in the markets, right? We are not trying to go look in for a short, especially on the higher time frames. It's very hard to time a short. Anyone that was short in the past 3 weeks or the past 2 weeks, very difficult time. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, on social media that have blown counts trying to short the markets because they don't trust the rally, either based off the news catalyst, or they're just trying to short the rally because they don't expect the markets to be up 12 days in a row. Are we overextended? Yes. But does that mean we can't go higher? No. So as you can see right here, the key levels I am going to have marked out is going to be, of course, that previous all-time highs, which was essentially the consolidation that we had to start off the year. So as you can see, we're on the daily time frame here. This is going to be our key level, specifically on the daily chart. If we can get this pullback long back down in towards that 695, this would be absolutely fantastic and the next best area for a longing opportunity. Just based off the SPY currently, you can see every dip being bought up. We have another gap up in the markets. As long as the SPY can maintain above those previous day lows, we can expect it to have continuation, right? Price doesn't have to come back here. It is eventually going to come back and retest, but based off the higher time frames, we could see another just rally above our previous day highs for continuation moving forward. But based off of the higher time frames, this is going to be the next best buying opportunity. This could come next week. This could come in a couple of weeks, but this is going to be your key level, your previous all-time highs here on the SPY. At least for the key levels on the lower time frames, as long as SPY can maintain above key levels, which is just going to be our previous day lows, right? You can see in this case, every single previous day low held on a bar by bar stance. And that's why the markets are so bullish, is because what we have here is our bar by bar method, right? Especially on the daily time frame, you can see every single day here closed above its previous candle low. We never had a day where price closed underneath its previous candle close, right? That has not happened on the SPY, and that is a great sign that there's tons of momentum. So if you're looking at the bar by bar method on the daily time frame, you do not want to go short until SPY can break underneath its previous day lows, hold underneath, and that's a signal that the markets are going to start to lose momentum and we can see a potential pullback. But until we can break underneath its previous candle low on the daily time frame, do not try and short the markets and look for pullback longs for continuation higher. If you guys have been watching my pre-market preps, I've been hammering the same game plan over and over. Do not try and find a top. Look for pullback longs in this market, and that's where you're going to make the most money. And then, of course, we have a lot of tech names to kind of go over, which look good as well. But for the SPY, that's going to be the key levels, at least coming to next week. What we're going to have marked out is going to be that previous day highs and previous day lows. We'll see if any news does come in over the weekend, but if we can break above our previous day highs, continuation. If we come down in towards that previous day lows, we can be looking for a look below fail and a reversal trade back towards the upside. So until we can have a strong candle close on the daily time frame, do not look for shorts. Look for pullback longs, and that's what's going to work in this market. If you go onto the QQQ chart, very similar thing here on the weekly time frame. Nice rally towards the upside. Look at this weekly candle close. Very bullish weekly candle close above our all-time highs. You can see a lot of this consolidation even since October of last year into March of this year, right? A lot of consolidation. Look below. Buyers stepped in, nice rally. This was our key level all-time highs, and I can see very strong candle close on the Qs. Very good sign, even if the markets pull back to that retest. As I mentioned, that would be perfect for a potential kind of wick back down in towards that previous all-time highs for a strong candle close here as well. So as I mentioned, any sort of pullback, we're going to be looking for a continuation on the weekly time frame, on the daily time frame, even on the lower time frames, we're going to be looking for those pullback longs. So this is the level that I have on the QQQ. Coming into market open, as for the daily time frame, the key levels that I have marked out is going to be that 630. As you can see, touch here, touch here. This is going to be the retest level that we're going to be looking for Qs for continuation higher, right? This is going to be a nice pullback for the Qs. previous all-time highs for continuation towards the upside. Similar thing to the SPY, until we can break our bar by bar, right, we're still going to be looking for continuation on those lower time frames. So if the candle can close back underneath its previous day lows, then we can see this retest. If we just keep continuing higher and breaking above those previous day highs, then we can expect the markets to continue up and towards those next key levels. You can draw out fibs on the higher time frames. You can use key psychological levels, right? 650, 660, 670s are going to be the next key levels on the QQQ. But that's going to be it for the daily time frame. If you go into the hourly chart, next week, what we're going to have marked out is going to be our previous day highs, previous day lows, longs above our previous day highs in play. If it comes back down in towards that previous day lows, look below, fail, continuation higher. And of course, if it does break underneath, hold underneath, then we can see that reversal all the way back down in towards that high that we created here with the news that we had on Friday. But we'll talk about that a little bit more on the pre-market preps. As you guys know, I do the pre-market preps every single morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're watching this for the first time and don't know about that, right, make sure to go onto my main channel and I do the live stream there to show you guys exactly what my top watches are. This is more of a weekly outlook and I'm looking at it on the higher time frames. But as you can see here, let's go on to the next chart. What we have is the SMH, one of my favorite names towards the upside. We talked about this, which was the low that we created here, the previous retest level. And you can see really strong buyers. If we're looking at the higher time frames, weekly candle closed a week previous above our all-time highs. And I can see this week's candle, very bullish move towards the upside as well. So SMH definitely leading the markets higher. We can just expect continuation. The semi theme has been fairly hot. Can we see this retest? We very much well can. There's a very good chance we just most likely will continue higher on the SMH. So this is what we have coming into this week in specific. If we look on the daily time frame, similar thing. In this case, we don't really have any levels to base it off of, so we're just going to mark out every single daily candle low. And as long as you can maintain above it, we can expect it to continue higher. IWM, similar thing here on the weekly time frame, is breaking above our all-time highs. Nice retest on the IWM, back at our all-time highs. Now we'd just like to see it maintain above 270 for continuation higher. If we're looking at this on the daily time frame, key levels that we will have marked out, we can just mark out this whole general area. 270 is going to be key. We can see a potential pullback longs down in towards that 270s. Full gap fill here as well for this pushback up in towards 277.50 and above. So you can see SPY and Qs along with the rest of the major indices. If we can get that pullback long on the daily time frame back up in towards our previous day highs, so our previous all-time highs, that would be absolutely fantastic. If not, we can just look on the lower time frames and look for trades for just continuation higher above our previous day highs. But that's what we have for the major indices coming into market open here. Now let's go on to some of the names that we're looking for. So Tesla. I talked about Tesla right back inside this period of consolidation. Really solid buying opportunity here really last week. As you can see, the bar by bar towards the downside, every single high was held. And now you can see once we're flipping back above, really solid push back towards the upside here, specifically on the weekly time frame. And you can see really strong buyers where we had a mini lower wick. We got to talk about that location, which was that original breakout level on Tesla. Now we came back for the retest, and you can see this weekly candle close, super bullish weekly candle close, right back inside really the area that we broke down from. So Tesla does have earnings this week, strong bounce off the lows. This was a name that was lagging the markets, but really strong bounce. Now if we're looking at this on the daily time frame, we also broke out of our downtrend that we had drawn here as well, reclaim back above key levels. So this was a good sign that Tesla is going to reverse, at least for now, right? Broke underneath that key pivot high, right? We ended up taking Tesla. That was the best trade last week, was on Wednesday, up about 8% intraday, one of the biggest days on Tesla in a while. But now you can see broke back above the trend line, flipping back above that 380. So moving forward here on Tesla, we have earnings next week. We like to see it maintain above 380 for that continuation towards the upside. Another key level that we're going to have marked on Tesla is going to be like this 410. So if we can break above 410, right, potential higher time frame, kind of this inverse head and shoulders forming here as well. But as long as you can maintain about 380, we are going to flip bullish here on Tesla. We'll talk about the lower time frames in a bit, but you can see nice rally on Wednesday, and then even on Friday, nice break and retest above our Wednesday's highs along with our Thursday's highs as well for continuation. So this is what we have on Tesla coming to next week. Let's go on to the weekly time frame here on Nvidia. Nice bounce off the lows, 170, broke back above this period of consolidation. Nvidia all-time highs in play for a move back up and towards 210. So as long as you can maintain above 190, continuation higher, strong weekly candle close, a back above this period of consolidation, going to be one of the main names to keep an eye out for. If you look at this on the daily time frame, what we have marked out now is 195, multiple touches. We're above our 195. What we like to see is break above our last week's highs for continuation or the potential pullback long back down in towards that 196. If we're looking at AMD, this one hit all-time highs, nice bounce off the lows. We had a couple bullish news catalysts last week. We filled that earnings gap back towards the upside. But if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, closing above this all-time highs level on AMD, longs above 260 for continuation here now. So if we go back onto the daily time frame, we did have this earnings gap that we filled 2 weeks ago. Now we're moving towards all-time highs. Really saw a break on Thursday. Now we're above our all-time highs, hold above that 270, continuation towards the upside. AMD, the rest of the semis, fairly bullish. Apple. Let's keep an eye on Apple coming to this week. Nice bounce off the lows here. This one is going to reverse back up in towards that 270, which was the range that we had earlier in the year. But as you can see for Apple, higher time frame, retesting this 250. Next level is going to be back up and towards our all-time highs. If we go into the daily time frame here, this one kind of lagging behind just a little bit, but nice kind of consolidation break on Apple. Next levels towards the upside, 275, 280 here on the higher time frames. As for the key levels that we're going to mark out next week, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the pre-market preps. As for Google, another one rallying towards our all-time highs, nice pullback. This one is going to hit our all-time highs, so you can expect most of these names that haven't hit all-time highs, that's going to be one of the main objectives. So 350 is going to gravitate up and towards that area this week here on Google, so you can expect to push up and towards that level. Microsoft, one of my favorite names that we talked about. Hopefully some of you guys were able to capture Microsoft based off the pre-market prep. Really solid low-risk entries here. 380s down into that 360, even down to that 340 if it could have got there. Microsoft right back in towards our 2025 lows compared to everything else, right? So Microsoft really solid buying opportunity. You can see this on the weekly time frame here. Nice weekly candle close back above. The first basically candle that closed back above, an immediate buyer stepped in. So very strong buyers here on Microsoft. We do have this big gap fill back towards the upside. We have earnings in a couple of weeks, but for Microsoft here and now, key levels that we are going to mark out 410. So above our 410 continuation. So if we bounce here, we can see this reversal back towards the upside or above 440 for this gap fill reversal, which happened to be from earlier this year in February. So Microsoft, basically every name I'm fairly bullish on. We can expect continuation back towards the highs or our all-time highs, whatever main objectives that they do have. As for Meta, nice break underneath, reclaim, push back towards the upside. Now the key levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be this 680. As you can see, this is a key level. Break back above that 680 hold, push back up towards our 740 is going to be key here. So keep an eye out on Meta reversal back towards the upside. If it breaks back underneath, you can see a little bit more consolidation. Wait for the reclaim back above. As for Amazon, all-time highs is in play here. So expect Amazon to any pullback for a push up and towards that all-time highs 260. Netflix, this one did have a gap down with earnings, of course. But for Netflix, you can be looking for an earnings reversal trade. Not going to set up as of yet, but now what we can mark out is going to be that 100 key psych. Once Netflix consolidates for a bit, once it trades back up in towards that 100 and reclaims back above, we can be looking for that gap fill back towards the upside. So with that being said, that was most of the tech names that we have here. There's a lot of names that look good for continuation, right? NVIDIA all-time highs is in play. AMD all-time highs continuation, right? These are the ones that are leading the markets higher. Tesla, we end up capturing a nice trade last week. Let's see if we can have continuation. Of course, we have earnings coming up as well. So we want to be a little bit more cautious and wait for most likely earnings after earnings, unless you're already well positioned down in towards that 360 or 350, right? You can hold some trailers into earnings for a potential reversal. Now, with this being said, let's go into a couple other names that I do like here. Starting off with Palantir, this one back at our retest level, you can see nice buyer stepping in off that 130. Key levels that we have on Palantir, you can see Palantir more inside of this range compared to everything else. But for Palantir, now we're going to need to see the reclaim. Really, the key levels I'm personally going to have marked out like 152-ish, 150. It's going to have to reclaim back above if I do want to see any sort of continuation higher. We had a pretty big drop on Palantir not too long ago. So if we do want to see some upside, just mark out that previous day highs levels, right? As long as you can maintain above that 144 here, that's going to be that higher low here on the hourly time frame for a push up and towards that 156. But my main names that I do like here are all the semiconductors along with memory. AVGO, nice bounce off the lows, all-time highs. Next week, that's going to be our key level that we're expecting the markets to gravitate towards after this really consolidation that we had to start off the year. Break above, nice continuation up and towards the all-time highs. Oracle, this one's bouncing off the lows here. So as you can see here, Oracle in a very clear downtrend on the weekly time frame. First weekly candle close back above, and we're also backing towards this key resistance level. So for Oracle, if we do want to see upside, back above 180 is going to be key. If it rejects, then we could see a push right back down inside this middle of the range. MU, all-time highs here on the weekly time frame. We can expect continuation. What we do have here is kind of this flag pattern forming. So let's keep an eye on MU, potential kind of cup and handle forming here as well. You can kind of call this a flag pattern forming up and towards our all-time highs. Do like this one for continuation. That's going to be above our 470. One of my favorite names, right? Kind of this cup and handle forming. SNDK, if we look at this one on the daily time frame, flag pattern forming on the daily as well. After this strong push up, consolidation, let's see if we can get that next leg up and towards 1,000. Intel, one of my favorite names that I talked about, finally made a brand new high, brand new all-time highs, recovered all the losses back from the crash that we had in the dot-com bubble. But Intel, really solid push, breaking back above our high that we created here in 2021. Super solid push towards the upside here on Intel, one of my favorite names. Now what we just like to see is the base above our previous at least high here from 2021, the COVID crash. So as you can see here, what we like to see now on Intel, base above that really 60 key psych level for that continuation towards the upside. Other names that look good, WDC continuation, right? TSM, Hood, something to keep an eye out for. I do like Hood, SoFi, all these ones right back on my retest level. You can see here, I loaded the boat here, really solid low risk add on Hood for long terms. And now you can see, we can see a trade all the way back up and towards 100, right? It doesn't make sense to add here. Obviously, in the past 2 weeks, if you added really solid entry for a pushback towards the upside, back up and towards our 100 key psych. Similar thing here with SoFi, kind of back inside this period of consolidation. Another kind of bounce play, not as bullish as Hood, but this Hood one right off our key level for a pushback towards the highs. Other names to keep an eye out for are some crypto names, right? These ones have been beaten down quite a bit. Bitcoin hasn't even reached a new high as of yet. So basically, whenever the markets are back at all-time highs, a lot of the themes will be whatever hasn't hit all-time highs, we're going to be looking for those low-risk entries. So with that being said, that is most likely going to be it for me today. My main watch is coming to next week. We'll talk about them a little bit more on a day-to-day basis in the pre-market preps. But of course, we have Tesla, right, bouncing off that 360. We're looking for continuation. NVIDIA, all-time highs in play. AMD, continuation above our all-time highs, right? And the rest of the names that haven't hit all-time highs, we are going to be looking for the markets to gravitate towards those levels. As for everything else, right, spine cues, we're just going to be looking for longs as long as you can maintain above our previous all-time highs for continuation. But yeah, with that being said, hopefully you guys did enjoy this weekly outlook. As I mentioned, we do this every single day in the pre-market prep. So if you guys want to join that, that is at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, with that being said, hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and comment. Appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys enjoy these, make sure to drop a comment in the below as well. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys all tomorrow for a YouTube video, and I'll see you guys on Monday for the pre-market prep. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.